In the shadow of Eldridge's misty hills, Elias Thorne, a solitary builder with dreams of cosmic grandeur, is handed blueprints that defy reality by a mysterious figure known as the Pale Architect. As he constructs a towering gate of pale stone, whispered to open worlds beyond the stars, the town crumbles under eerie vines and falling stars. Haunted by the loss of young Clara to the void's shadows, Elias must choose. Finish the gate to save her and glimpse cosmic wonders, or destroy it to save his world, knowing each choice risks eternal ruin. Will he become the void's architect, or shatter its hold forever? Chapter 1. The Whispering Blueprints. In the quiet town of Eldridge, nestled between misty hills and a dark forest, lived a young man named Elias Thorne. He was a builder by trade, but not the kind who made simple houses or barns. No, Elias dreamed of grand things, tall spires that touched the sky, walls that twisted like vines, and rooms that held secrets. His skin was pale from long nights bent over drawings, his eyes sharp and hungry for more. The townsfolk called him odd, but they hired him anyway because his work lasted forever. One foggy evening in autumn, as leaves turned red and gold, Elias sat in his small workshop. The room smelled of old paper and ink. Candles flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. He was alone, as always, sketching a new plan for a church the mayor wanted. But his mind wandered to bigger ideas, ones that came to him in dreams, vast cities floating in space, built from bones of stars. A knock echoed at the door. It was soft, like a breath. Elias paused, pencil in hand. Who would come at this hour? The town slept early. He opened the door and cold air rushed in. There stood a stranger, tall and thin, wrapped in a black coat that seemed to swallow light. His face was hidden under a wide hat, but Elias saw pale skin glowing like moonlight. "Good evening," the stranger said, his voice low and smooth, like wind through cracks. "I hear you are the best architect in these parts. I have a job for you." Elias blinked, surprised. No one called him the best. "What kind of job?" The stranger stepped inside without asking, his boots silent on the wood floor. He pulled out a roll of paper from his coat, old, yellowed, tied with a faded ribbon. "These are blueprints, not for a house or bridge, for something greater." Elias untied the ribbon, unrolled the paper. His heart raced. The drawings were unlike anything he knew. Lines curved in impossible ways, forming shapes that hurt his eyes. Towers spiraled into infinity, halls stretched beyond sight, and in the center, a dome that looked like a giant eye, staring back. Notes scribbled in strange letters dotted the edges, words he couldn't read, but they whispered in his mind. "Where did you get these?" Elias asked, his voice shaky. The stranger smiled, teeth white and sharp. "From a place beyond the stars, a realm where time bends and space folds. Build this, and you will see wonders." Elias laughed nervously. "This can't be built. The angles don't make sense. Stone can't twist like that." "Oh, but it can," the stranger replied. "With the right materials and the right will." He placed a cold hand on Elias's shoulder. "I am the Pale Architect. I design for eternities. You will be my hands in this world." The name sent a chill down Elias's spine. Stories from his childhood flooded back, tales of a ghostly figure who built ruins that drove men mad. Ruins found in deep woods or under seas, where walls breathed and floors shifted. "Why me?" Elias whispered. "Because you dream of the cosmos," the Pale Architect said. "I see it in your eyes. Accept, and I will teach you secrets lost to time." Elias stared at the blueprints. They called to him, pulling like a tide. He nodded. "I'll do it." The stranger vanished into the night, leaving only the blueprints and a faint echo of laughter. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He pored over the drawings, tracing lines with his fingers. As dawn broke, he felt a change. His hands moved faster, ideas flowed like water. He gathered tools and set out to find a site. The town edge had an old quarry, abandoned for years. Rocks. They were pale and smooth, veined with silver. Perfect, he thought. He hired workers, strong men from the farms, but they grumbled. "This plan is mad," one said. "Curves like that will fall." "Trust me," Elias replied. "It will stand." Work began at sunrise. Hammers rang, chisels bit into stone. But strange things happened. Tools broke on hard rock that suddenly turned soft. Workers heard whispers from the ground like voices from far away. One man cut his hand and his blood soaked into the stone, turning it red for a moment before fading. Elias ignored the signs. He worked hardest, his pale face dirt-streaked. At night, he dreamed of vast emptiness, stars swirling into shapes. In one dream, he floated in black space, building a palace from comet tails. The pale architect watched, nodding. Days turned to weeks. The structure rose, a base wide as a field, walls climbing high. But it wasn't right. Angles leaned wrong, making eyes water. Birds avoided flying over it. Dogs howled from afar. One evening, a storm brewed. Clouds boiled black, lightning cracked. Workers fled to their homes, but Elias stayed. Rain poured, but he climbed the scaffolding, fixing a beam. Thunder roared, and in the flash he saw him, the pale architect, standing atop the wall, coat flapping like wings. "You progress well," the figure called over the wind. "What is this building for?" Elias shouted back. "It's not a house or temple. It's a gate," the pale architect answered. "To worlds beyond. Cosmic realms where gods sleep and horrors wake." Elias's stomach twisted. "Horrors," the figure laughed. "Beauty and terror are one. Build on, Elias. The stars await." Lightning struck. Nearby, shaking the ground. Elias slipped, falling from the scaffold. He hit the mud, pain exploding in his leg. Darkness took him. He woke in his workshop, leg bandaged. How did he get there? The blueprints lay open, glowing faintly. He limped to the window. The structure stood in the rain, unharmed, its lines sharper than before. Word spread in town. Folks whispered about the cursed build. The mayor visited, face stern. "Stop this madness, Elias. It's scaring people." But Elias shook his head. "It's almost done. You'll see. It's wonderful." The mayor left, muttering. Elias returned to work alone. Workers quit, claiming ghosts. He toiled day and night, hands blistered, body aching. The whispers grew louder, from the stones, from the blueprints. They told stories of ancient times, when stars fell and built empires from dust. One night, under a full moon, Elias placed the last stone. The structure complete, a twisted tower, dome like an eye, walls etched with symbols that moved when not watched. He stepped inside. The air was cold, stars visible through cracks that shouldn't be. Echoes bounced, but not of his steps, of distant roars and songs. The pale architect appeared from shadows. "Well done. Now, the final touch." He handed Elias a small vial, liquid inside swirling like galaxies. "Pour this at the center. It will bind the worlds." Elias hesitated. What if it's wrong? What if it brings doom? The figure's eyes glowed. Doom or glory, both are grand. Choose. Trembling, Elias poured. The liquid spread, sinking into floor. The ground shook, walls hummed. Light burst from the dome, shooting to the sky. Stars shifted, forming new patterns. Visions flooded Elias's mind. Vast beings of light and dark, planets crumbling, universes born. He saw the cosmos, endless and terrifying. He fell to his knees, laughing and crying. "It's wonderful." The pale architect nodded. "Welcome to eternity." Outside, the town stirred. Lights flickered in windows. They saw the beam piercing clouds, heard the hum like a heartbeat. But Elias didn't care. He was lost in the blueprints. Whisper, ready for more. As the night deepened, the tower stood silent, waiting. Elias emerged, changed, eyes distant, skin paler. He knew this was just the start. Greater designs called from the void. In the days that followed, strange events plagued Eldridge. Crops wilted under odd lights. Children drew stars they shouldn't. No, animals fled the forest. Elias ignored it all. He sketched new plans, inspired by visions. The Pale Architect visited in dreams, teaching forbidden knowledge, how to bend space with stone, trap time in bricks. One afternoon, a girl named Clara, Elias's neighbor, knocked on his door. She was brave, with curly hair and curious eyes. "What's that tower for, Mr. Thorne? It scares my pa." Elias smiled faintly. "It's a door to wonders, Clara. Stars and secrets." Her eyes widened. "Can I see?" "Not yet," he said. "But soon." She left, but returned at dusk, sneaking to the tower. Elias found her inside, staring at the dome. "It's moving," she whispered. "The walls breathe." He pulled her out. "Dangerous, go home." That night, Clara dreamed of floating in black, building with light. She woke screaming. Elias felt guilt, but the pull was stronger. He delved deeper, compressing ancient lore into his mind, tales of cosmic builders who shaped galaxies, Gothic horrors lurking in angles. Weeks passed. The tower changed. Vines grew pale and thorny, wrapping stones. Shadows lingered even in sun. Townsfolk gathered, torches lit. "Tear it down," they yelled. Elias stood guard. "You don't understand. It's beautiful." A fight brewed, but thunder crashed. The dome opened like an eye, light pouring out. People froze, visions hitting them, endless voids, pale figures dancing. They fled, minds touched by cosmos. Elias laughed. "See, wonderful." Alone again, he entered the tower. The Pale Architect waited. Time for the next step, a city in the stars. Elias nodded, eager. But deep down, fear stirred. What cost would this bring? The chapter ends with Elias gazing at the sky, blueprints whispering promises of glory and ruin. Chapter 2. Shadows in the stone. Elias woke to shadows dancing across his ceiling, twisting like smoke in the dim light of dawn. The tower's low hum vibrated in his bones, a pulse that felt alive. His leg ached from the fall weeks ago, but he ignored it, rising from his straw mattress. The air in his workshop smelled of damp wood and ink. The blueprints still spread across his table, their strange lines glowing faintly under candlelight. Outside, the town of Eldridge lay quiet, fog curling through its streets like ghostly fingers. He stepped into the chilly morning, his breath puffing white. The tower loomed at the quarry's edge, its pale stones gleaming despite the weak sun. Parts of it stayed dark, though. No matter how light hit, certain corners swallowed it, like ink spilled on paper. Elias shivered, pulling his coat tighter. The structure was beautiful, yes, but it felt wrong, like it watched him back. Clara, the neighbor girl with curly hair and wide eyes, waited by his door. She was only 12, but braver than most grown men in town. "I saw things last night." "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice small but firm. "In my dreams. Scary things. Stars with teeth." Elias frowned, his heart sinking. "Go home, Clara. This isn't for kids." She crossed her arms, stubborn. "I'm not scared. I want to know what it means." He sighed, knowing she wouldn't. "Leave." "Fine, but stay close." He didn't want her near the tower, not after what he'd seen, the way the walls seemed to breathe at night, the whispers that came from nowhere. But Clara's eyes held the same hunger he felt, a pull toward something bigger than Eldridge. They walked to the quarry, boots crunching on frost-covered grass. The tower stood taller now, its base wide as a meadow, walls curving upward in ways that made Elias's head ache. Workers had quit days ago, muttering about ghosts and tools that moved on their own. Only Elias and a few brave souls remained, and even they worked with nervous glances. Clara stopped at a pile of pale stones, each veined with silver. "These are different," she said, touching one. "They feel warm." Elias knelt beside her, running his hand over the smooth surface. She was right. The stone pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. "Feel deeper," he said. "It's alive with secrets." Clara closed her eyes, her small fingers tracing the veins. Her face went still, then pale. "It whispers," she said. "Words, I don't know, about skies and voids." Elias nodded, his throat tight. He'd heard them too, every night since the Pale Architect gave him the blueprints. Words that slithered into his mind, telling of ancient builders who shaped stars, of Gothic halls where shadows held power. He didn't tell Clara that. She was too young for such weight. Instead, he showed her how to stack the stones, how to follow the blueprint's impossible curves. "See these lines?" he said, pointing to a sketch. "They don't make sense in our world, but they will, they have to." Clara tilted her head, curious. "It's like the old castles in my storybooks, Gothic, all dark and twisty." Elias smiled faintly. "Yes, but with stars inside." They worked through the morning, Elias carving stones while Clara hauled smaller ones. The air grew heavy, the sky graying with clouds. The tower's new wing, a spiral of pale rock, rose higher, its angles defying reason. Passers-by from Eldridge stopped to stare, their faces a mix of awe and fear. Word had spread beyond the town and strangers arrived, drawn by tales of the cursed build. Some called it a wonder, others a sin. One man, a traveler with a weathered face, touched the tower's wall and gasped. "It's warm," he said, "like flesh." Elias shrugged, hiding his unease. "Just the sun's heat." The man shook, his head and left, muttering prayers. That night trouble came. Elias worked late, alone except for the wind's howl. The tower's shadows stretched long, moving when they shouldn't. He lit a lantern, its glow weak against the dark. As he chiseled a stone, he heard it, a low moan, not from wind or wood, but from the ground itself. He froze, heart pounding. The lantern flickered. A shape peeled from the wall. A tall, thin figure, its arms too long, its face a blur of darkness. It moved toward him, silent but heavy, like a storm about to break. Elias stumbled back, dropping his chisel. "Who's there?" he called, voice shaking. No answer. The shadow reached for him, its fingers brushing his coat. Cold stabbed his chest, like ice in his veins. He swung the lantern, and the light hit the figure. It hissed, dissolving into the stone. He ran to his workshop, locking the door. The blueprints glowed brighter now, their lines writhing like snakes. He sat, catching his breath, and opened them. The whispers returned, louder, telling of shadows that guarded cosmic gates, of prices paid in blood. The next day, he returned to the tower, determined to keep building. Clara was there, sketching in the dirt with a stick. "You look scared," she said. "I'm fine." Elias lied. "Let's work." But the shadows grew bolder. That evening, a worker named Tom, a burly man who'd stayed despite the rumors, lingered to fix a cracked stone. Elias saw it happen. A shadow rose from the ground, wrapping around Tom like smoke. He screamed, a sound cut short as the shadow pulled him down. When Elias reached the spot, Tom was gone. Only his hammer remained, cold to the touch. The other workers fled, shouting about ghosts. Elias searched for hours, calling Tom's name. Nothing. That night, the Pale Architect appeared, stepping from the tower's dark doorway. His coat shimmered like starlight, his eyes hidden under his hat. "Sacrifices are needed for greatness," he said, voice smooth as silk. "The tower demands." Elias's stomach twisted. "Demands what? Lives?" The figure smiled, teeth glinting. "Only what is given freely. Keep building, Elias. The cosmos waits." Horror gripped him, but the blueprint's pull was stronger. He worked alone now, adding a new wing, a maze of arches that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The stones whispered constantly, their voices weaving tales of forgotten builders who carved galaxies, of Gothic horrors lurking in the spaces between stars. Clara returned, undeterred. "I dreamed of the tower," she said. "It was bigger, stretching to the sky. But something watched from inside." "Don't go in," Elias warned. "It's not safe." She ignored him, helping carry stones. Her small hands were steady, her eyes bright with wonder. "It's beautiful, Mr. Thorne. Scary." but beautiful. Elias felt a pang of guilt. She was too young to be part of this, but the tower needed hands, and hers were willing. Weeks passed, the tower growing stranger. Vines sprouted from its base, pale and thorny, wrapping stones like veins. Shadows lingered even in daylight, forming shapes that vanished when stared at. Townsfolk avoided the quarry, but some came at night, leaving offerings, flowers, coins, even blood poured from cut hands. They thought it would appease whatever haunted the place. One stormy night, the shadows swarmed. Elias worked under flickering lanterns, rain soaking his clothes. Clara had snuck out to help, against his orders. Thunder roared, and the shadows rose, dozens, tall and thin, circling the tower like wolves. "Stay back," Elias shouted, grabbing a vial of the pale architect's liquid from his pocket. It was nearly empty, its galaxy-like swirls faint. He splashed it on the ground, and light flared, driving the shadows back. They hissed, retreating into cracks. Clara screamed, clutching her hand. A shadow had touched her, leaving her skin cold and gray. "It hurts," she whimpered. Elias carried her to his workshop, wrapping her hand in cloth. "We must stop," she begged, tears streaming. "It's wrong." "No," Elias said, voice hard. "The shadows are part of the design. They guard the gate." Her eyes widened. "Gate to what?" He didn't answer, unsure himself. The pale architect's words echoed. Worlds beyond, gods and horrors. Was it worth it? He pushed the thought away, returning to the tower. Days later, he carved symbols into the walls, lines and curves from the blueprints, meant to tame the shadows. They glowed faintly, calming the air. Clara watched, her hand still bandaged. "You're different now," she said, "paler, like him." Elias froze. He'd noticed it too. His skin, once tanned from work, was now ghostly white. His eyes saw things others didn't, stars in daylight, shapes in clouds. The blueprints had changed him, compressing ancient knowledge into his mind. He knew how to bend space with stone, how to trap time in bricks. But at what cost? The townsfolk gathered one evening, torches blazing. "Tear it down!" they shouted, led by the mayor. "It's cursed." Elias stood at the tower's entrance, hammer in hand. "You don't understand. It's beautiful, a wonder." The mayor stepped forward, face red. "It took Tom. It'll take more." A woman screamed, pointing. The tower's dome glowed, light pulsing like a heartbeat. Shadows swirled inside, forming faces. Tom's among them, twisted in pain. The crowd backed away, but Elias laughed. "See? It's alive! Wonderful!" They fled, leaving him alone. He entered the tower, the air cold and thick. The pale architect waited, his coat blending with the dark. "The shadows serve," he said. "They build with you." Elias's hands shook. "What's next?" "A city," the figure replied. "In the stars. Bigger than this. Eternal." Elias nodded, heart racing. Fear mixed with awe. The blueprints whispered, promising glory and ruin. He saw visions, cities of bone and light, spanning voids, Gothic spires piercing skies where stars screamed. Clara's voice broke his thoughts. She'd followed him inside, eyes wide. "Don't listen, Mr. Thorne, it's tricking you." He turned angry. "Go home, Clara." She ran, tears falling. Elias felt a stab of guilt, but the tower's pull was stronger. He carved more symbols, each one locking a shadow in place. The walls hummed, pleased. That night, he dreamed of the pale architect, standing in a void where stars bled. "You are..." "My hands," the figure said. "Build and become more." Elias woke, sweat-soaked. The tower stood silent, its shadows still, but he felt them watching, waiting. He grabbed his tools, ready for the next step. The chapter ends with Elias sketching new plans, his hands moving as if guided. The tower's hum grew louder, its shadows creeping closer. Somewhere, Clara watched from her window, her bandaged hand trembling, knowing the worst was yet to come. Chapter 3. The forgotten tower. Elias woke with a start. his breath sharp and cold. The hum of the tower lingered in his chest, a rhythm that felt like it was stitching itself into his heart. His workshop was dark, save for the faint glow of the blueprints spread across his table. Their lines seemed to pulse, curling like vines in the candlelight. He hadn't slept well since the shadows took Tom. Every night, dreams dragged him to strange places, black voids where stars burned with faces, Gothic halls with walls that whispered his name. Clara's words echoed in his mind. "You're different now. Paler. Like him." He glanced at his hands. Ghostly white, veins stark against his skin. The pale architect's touch was changing him, and not just his body. His thoughts raced with ideas no human should have. How to carve stone to trap starlight, how to bend time with arches. The blueprints fed him knowledge, compressing centuries of cosmic secrets into his mind. He shook off the thoughts and grabbed his axe. Rumors had reached Eldridge of another tower, older than memory, hidden deep in the forest beyond the quarry. Townsfolk whispered of it in hushed tones, a ruin that matched the shapes in his dreams. If it was real, it might hold answers about the pale architect and the gate his tower was meant to open. The forest loomed at the town's edge, its trees gnarled and twisted, their branches like fingers clawing the sky. Elias stepped into its shadows, the air thick with the scent of moss and decay. The path was narrow, overgrown with pale vines that seemed to writhe when he wasn't looking. He gripped his axe tighter, his boots sinking into soft earth. The whispers followed him, not from the blueprints now, but from the trees themselves. They spoke of ancient builders, of cities lost to time, of doors that led to places where light screamed. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt slippery here. The forest seemed to loop, paths doubling back on themselves. Elias's heart pounded, but he pressed on, driven by a pull he couldn't name. At last, he stumbled into a clearing. There it stood, the forgotten tower. It was smaller than his, but its stones were the same. Pale, veined with silver, etched with symbols that glowed faintly under the dim sun. Its walls leaned at impossible angles like they'd been built to defy the world's rules. Vines wrapped it, not green but white, their thorns sharp as needles. The air around it hummed, a low note that made Elias's teeth ache. He stepped closer, axe raised. The tower's entrance was a black arch, deep as Eddie well. He lit a lantern from his pack, its light barely piercing the dark. Inside, the air was cold, heavy with dust. His boots echoed on the stone floor, but the sound came back wrong. Too loud, too slow, like the tower was swallowing time. The walls were carved with scenes, vast cities floating in starry voids, figures with long arms building spires from bone, stars falling like rain. Elias traced them with his fingers, feeling warmth in the stone. The carvings moved under his touch, shifting into new shapes, Gothic arches, domes like eyes, halls that stretched forever. His head throbbed, visions flooding in, builders chanting under alien skies, shadows dancing in cosmic winds. At the center of the tower, a stone table stood covered in relics, books bound in strange leather, their pages filled with unreadable script, tools that hummed when he touched them, chisels that felt alive, hammers that whispered. A cracked mirror hung on the wall, its surface rippling like water. Elias looked into it and froze. His reflection was wrong. His eyes glowed, his skin was too pale, and behind him stood the pale architect, smiling. Elias spun, but no one was. There, the mirror showed only him now, but his reflection's smile lingered too long. He backed away, heart racing. A voice came from the walls, low and smooth. "This was my first," the pale architect said. "A trial, a seed. You build the flower." Elias clutched his axe, voice shaking. "What is this place? What do you want?" "A gate," the voice replied, "to worlds where gods dream and horrors sing. You are my hands, Elias. Build and see." The air grew colder, the hum louder. Shadows stirred in the corners, their shapes flickering, tall, thin, With arms that reached too far, Elias swung his lantern, and they retreated, but not far. He grabbed a book from the table, its pages heavy with dust. The script inside moved, forming words he could almost read. Stone binds space, blood binds time, build and open. He stuffed the book into his pack, along with a humming chisel. The tower seemed to groan, as if angry he took its treasures. The shadows lunged, and Elias ran, lantern swinging wildly. He burst into the clearing, the forest closing behind him like a trap. The tower stood silent, but its hum followed him, all the way back to Eldridge. When he reached his workshop, Clara was waiting, her bandaged hand hidden in her sleeve. "You found it, didn't you?" she said, eyes wide. "The old tower." Elias nodded, too tired to lie. "It's like mine, older, stranger." She stepped closer, voice low. "I dreamed of it last night. It was alive, Mr. Thorne. It wanted something." He didn't answer, opening the stolen book. Its pages glowed, the script now clear. Instructions for building gates, for carving stones to hold starlight. The knowledge poured into him, heavy and sharp, like swallowing glass. He saw visions of cosmic cities, their spires piercing skies where stars bled. Gothic halls stretched into infinity, guarded by shadows that sang. "We need to stop," Clara said. "It's hurting people. My hand still hurts." Elias looked at her bandage, guilt twisting his gut. "It's not done yet," he said. "The tower, my tower, needs more. Then we'll understand." She shook her head but stayed, watching as he sketched new plans. The stolen book guided his hand, its whispers blending with the blueprints. He drew a new wing for his tower, a spiral of arches that would trap light, bend space. The pale architect's voice echoed in his mind. Build and become more. Days passed, and Elias worked alone. The townsfolk avoided him now, their eyes full of fear. The mayor came once, demanding he stop. "The forest is wrong now," he said. "Trees move, animals are gone. It's your tower." "It's not mine," Elias snapped. "It's bigger than me." The mayor left, muttering about burning it down. Clara helped when she could, carrying stones despite her pain. "It's beautiful," she admitted one day, staring at the new arches. "But it's scary too, like a story with no end." Elias didn't reply. He felt it too, the beauty, the terror. The tower was growing, its walls now stretching higher than any building in Eldridge. At night, it glowed faintly, stars reflecting in its stones. Shadows moved inside, even when no one was there. One evening a storm rolled in, black clouds swallowing the sky. Elias worked through the rain, carving symbols from the stolen book. Lightning cracked, and the shadows came again, dozens swarming like flies. They whispered his name, their voices a chorus of hunger. Clara screamed from the quarry's edge. "They're coming for us!" Elias grabbed the humming chisel from his pack. It burned his hand, but he swung it at the shadows. Light flared, and they hissed, retreating into the stones. He ran to Clara, pulling her to safety. Her bandage was soaked, her hand gray and cold. "We can't keep doing this," she cried. "It's eating us." Elias's heart ached, but the tower's pull was stronger. "It's almost done," he said. "One more piece." He returned to the tower, alone. The stolen book lay open, its pages showing a final design, a dome that would complete the gate. The pale architect appeared, his coat blending with the storm. "Finish it," he said, "and the cosmos will open." Elias nodded, his hands moving as if possessed. He carved the dome's base, each strike of the chisel sending sparks into the dark. The tower hummed louder, its stones vibrating. Stars above shifted, forming patterns no one in Eldridge had seen before. The townsfolk gathered at a distance, torches flickering in the rain. They shouted, but their words were lost in the storm. Elias ignored them, his mind filled with visions. Gothic spires piercing black skies, shadows dancing in cosmic winds, cities built from the bones of gods. Clara snuck back, her eyes wide with fear and awe. "It's alive," she whispered, staring at the dome. "It sees us." Elias pulled her away. "Stay out," he said. "It's not for you." But she didn't listen. That night she returned, slipping inside the tower. Elias found her at the dome's center, staring at the stones. "They're moving," she said, "like waves." He grabbed her arm, dragging her out. The shadows followed, their whispers growing louder. Build, open, become. Back in his workshop, Elias pored over the book and blueprints. The knowledge was too much. His head ached, his hands trembled. He saw the gate in his mind, a door to worlds where time twisted, where horrors and wonders were one. But he saw Tom's face too, twisted in the shadows, and Clara's gray hand. The next day, he returned to the forgotten tower, needing answers. The forest was darker now, the paths gone. He found the ruin, its stones glowing brighter. Inside, the mirror showed his reflection again, paler, eyes like stars. The pale architect stood behind him, laughing. "You cannot stop," the figure said. "The gate is yours now." Elias swung his axe at the mirror, shattering it. Glass rained down, each shard showing a different face. Tom, Clara, himself, all twisted. The tower groaned, shadows lunging. He ran, the book and chisel clutched to his chest. Back in Eldridge, the town was in chaos. Crops withered under strange lights. Children drew stars they shouldn't know. The tower's hum was louder, felt in every home. Elias locked himself in his workshop, sketching the dome's final design. The pale architect's voice whispered, "Finish it. Become eternal." Clara knocked, her voice soft. "Mr. Thorne, please, stop." He opened the door, seeing her tear-streaked face. "I can't," he said. "It's too late." She held up her bandaged hand. "It's not. We can fight." Elias looked at the blueprints, then at her. For a moment, doubt flickered. But the tower's hum called, stronger than ever. He turned away, grabbing his tools. The chapter ends with Elias climbing the tower's scaffolding, chisel in hand. The dome was nearly complete, its stones glowing like eyes. Shadows swirled below, whispering promises of glory and ruin. Clara watched from the quarry's edge, her hand trembling, knowing the gate was waking. Chapter 4. Echoes from the void. Elias stood atop the tower's scaffolding, the chisel in his hand trembling as the storm raged around him. Rain lashed his face, cold and sharp, but the tower's hum drowned out the thunder. Its pale stones glowed faintly, their silver veins pulsing like blood under skin. The dome he'd been carving, guided by the stolen book and the pale architect's blueprints, was nearly complete. It loomed above, a vast eye of stone staring into the churning sky. Each strike of his chisel sent sparks flying, and with every spark, the whispers grew louder, seeping into his mind like ink into water. The air felt heavy, thick with something more than rain. Elias sensed it, a presence, vast and unseen, pressing against the world. The blueprints had promised a gate, a door to cosmic realms, but now, as he carved the final symbols, he wondered what lay beyond. The pale architect's words echoed, "Gods sleep, horrors wake." His heart thudded, torn between fear and awe. Below, Clara watched from the quarry's edge, her small figure barely visible through the rain. Her bandaged hand hung limp, gray and cold from the shadow's touch. She'd begged him to stop, her voice breaking, but Elias couldn't. The tower called, its hum a song he couldn't ignore. It was beautiful, terrifying, wonderful. He struck the last symbol, a twisting spiral that burned his eyes to look at. The dome shuddered, a low groan rising from its stones. Light flared, shooting upward, piercing the clouds. The sky answered, stars shifting into patterns no one in Eldridge had ever seen. The hum became a roar, shaking the ground. Elias clung to the scaffolding, his breath ragged. The gate was waking. Clara screamed, her voice cutting through the storm. "Mr. Thorne, it's moving!" He looked down, seeing shadows swirl at the tower's base. Tall, thin shapes with arms too long, their faces blurred. They flowed like liquid, circling the structure. Elias gripped the humming chisel, its warmth steadying him. He shouted, "Stay back, Clara, don't come closer." But she ran toward the tower, her curls plastered to her face. It's wrong. It's eating the world. Elias slid down the scaffolding, landing hard in the mud. He grabbed her arm, pulling her away. The shadows hissed, their whispers forming words. Open, build, become. The air crackled, and for a moment, Elias saw beyond, through the dome's glowing eye, a void of endless black. Stars spinning like blades, shapes moving that weren't human, weren't alive. He shoved Clara behind a stone pile. Hide, he whispered. Now. She obeyed, trembling. Elias faced the shadows, holding the chisel like a weapon. The stolen book, tucked in his coat, burned against his chest. Its pages had taught him to bind shadows with symbols, but he wasn't sure it would work. He carved a line into the ground, copying a spiral from the book. Light flared and the shadows recoiled, their hisses turning to shrieks. The storm quieted, but the tower's hum grew louder, vibrating in Elias's bones. He felt it pulling, not just him but everything. Air, light, time. The quarry's rocks shifted, some floating. An inch above the ground. Clara gasped, clutching her bandaged hand. What's happening? Elias didn't know. He only knew he had to finish. The pale architect's voice came, not from the air, but inside his head. The gate needs blood. Bind it, or it will take all. He froze. Blood? Tom's face flashed in his mind, twisted in the shadows. Had that been the price? He looked at Clara, her eyes wide with fear. No, he wouldn't let it take her. He ran to the tower's entrance, the shadows trailing like smoke. Inside, the air was colder, the walls glowing with symbols that moved when he blinked. The dome above pulsed, its light shifting from white to red like a heartbeat. Elias opened the stolen book, its pages flipping on their own. A new design appeared, a circle of stones to seal the gate, to hold the void at bay. He worked fast, carving stones with the humming chisel. Each strike sent shocks through his arm, but he didn't stop. The shadows pressed closer, their whispers now a scream. Open. Now. Elias ignored them, his hands steady, despite the fear clawing his chest. He placed the stones in a circle at the dome's center, chanting words from the book. Strange, guttural. Sounds that hurt his throat. The hum softened, the shadows fading. The dome's light dimmed, but the air still felt wrong, like it was stretched thin. Elias stepped back, panting. Clara peeked from the entrance, her face pale. Did it work? I think so, Elias said, but doubt gnawed at him. The tower felt alive, watching, waiting. That night, he took Clara home, her parents furious but relieved. Keep her away, her father growled. Your tower's cursed. Elias nodded, guilt heavy in his gut. He returned to his workshop, the stolen book and blueprints glowing faintly. He tried to sleep, but dreams pulled him back to the void. A black sea where stars sang, their voices sharp and cold. The pale architect stood on a shore of bone, pointing to a city of twisted spires. Build this, he said, and you will be eternal. Elias woke, sweat-soaked. The tower's hum was faint now, but it never stopped. He knew it wasn't done. The gate was sealed, but not closed. Something waited beyond, hungry. Days passed, and Eldridge grew stranger. The sky stayed gray, stars visible even at noon. Crops withered, their leaves curling into spirals like the blueprints. Animals fled the forest, their eyes wild. Children, including Clara, drew strange shapes in the dirt, stars, arches, eyes. The townsfolk whispered of curses, their fear turning to anger. Elias kept working, adding to the tower. He built a new wing, a maze of arches that bent light, casting shadows that moved on their own. The stolen book guided him, its knowledge compressing into his mind. How to shape stone to hold time, how to carve symbols that sang to stars. His hands moved faster, his body tireless, but his skin grew paler, his eyes brighter, like they held light from another world. Clara visited, despite her parents' warnings. The tower's talking to me, she said, her bandaged hand hidden in her sleeve. It wants more. Elias frowned. You're imagining things. She shook her head. I heard it last night, It said your name. He sent her home, but her words lingered. That evening, he climbed the tower's new wing, the arches twisting above like ribs of a giant beast. The air hummed and the shadows returned, quieter now, but still watching. Elias carved a new symbol, a star inside a circle, meant to strengthen. The seal. The stone warmed under his touch, whispering, "More." Blood. He dropped the chisel, heart racing. The pale architect appeared, stepping from a shadow. His coat shimmered, his face hidden but smiling. "You hesitate," he said, "but the gate is yours. Feed it and see wonders." "Feed it what?" Elias demanded. "More lives?" The figure laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Life is the key. Yours, hers, theirs, it matters not. The cosmos demands." Elias backed away, clutching the book. "I won't." "Then it will choose," the pale architect said, vanishing. That night, the tower roared. Light burst from the dome, shaking the ground. Elias ran outside, seeing stars spiral above, forming a face, vast, eyeless, screaming. The townsfolk gathered, torches blazing, their shouts drowned by the hum. "Tear it down!" they screamed. Elias stood at the entrance, hammer raised. "You can't! It's alive!" The mayor pushed forward, face red. "It's killing us!" "The fields, the sky, it's your fault." Before Elias could answer, Clara ran from the crowd, slipping past him into the tower. "I can help," she shouted. "No." Elias chased her, the crowd following. Inside, the dome glowed red, its hum deafening. Clara stood at the center, her bandaged hand raised. "It's talking," she cried. "It wants me." Elias grabbed her, but the shadows surged, wrapping her like vines. Her scream cut off as they pulled her into the floor. The crowd gasped, some running, others frozen. Elias swung the humming chisel, light flaring, but Clara was gone. He fell to his knees, tears mixing with rain. The pale architect's voice whispered, "A price paid." The gate grows stronger. Elias roared, smashing the chisel against the stone. Sparks flew, but the tower stood firm. The crowd fled, their torches fading in the storm. Elias sat in the dark, the book open beside him. Its pages showed a new design, a spire to pierce the sky, to finish the gate. He worked through the night, guilt and rage driving him. The spire rose, its stones carved with stars that glowed without light. The hum softened, but the void's presence grew, pressing against his mind. He saw visions, Clara in a black sea, building with light, her face calm but empty. Was she alive? Lost? He didn't know. The townsfolk stayed away now, their homes locked. Strange lights danced in the sky, and the forest spread, its pale vines creeping toward Eldridge. Elias ignored it, his mind consumed by the spire. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing cities of bone and shadow, Gothic halls where time bled. One morning, a note came from Clara's parents begging for answers. Elias couldn't face them. He sent a letter promising to find her, but deep down, he feared she was part of the gate now, her life woven into its stones. He climbed the spire, the stolen book in his pack. The air was thin, the stars too close. At the top, he carved the final symbol, a circle of eyes, watching forever. The tower shook, light pouring from the dome. Elias saw the void again, clearer now. A city of twisted spires, shadows dancing, stars screaming songs of creation and ruin. The pale architect appeared, his coat a swirl of starlight. "The gate is ready," he said. "Step through and build forever." Elias hesitated, Clara's face in his mind. "What's the cost?" "Everything," the figure said, "and nothing. You are the architect now." Elias looked at the stars, their light cold and sharp. The tower hummed, its stones warm under his hands. He felt the void calling, promising wonders and horrors. He took a step toward the dome, then stopped, doubt flickering. The chapter ends with Elias standing on the spire, the gate's light bathing him. The void waited, its echoes loud in his ears. Below, Eldridge lay silent, its people hiding from the sky's strange stars. Elias held the chisel, torn between building and breaking, knowing the next step would change everything. Chapter 5. Pale hands at work. Elias stood atop the spire, the humming chisel clutched in his trembling hand. The tower's dome pulsed below, its red light bathing him in a glow that felt alive, like blood under stone. The storm had passed, but the air hung heavy, thick with the scent of wet earth and something sharper. Ozone, like lightning trapped in a bottle. The stars above twisted into spirals, their patterns alien, singing a song only Elias could hear. The void's echoes roared in his mind, promising wonders beyond imagining, horrors too vast to name. Clara's face lingered in his thoughts, her scream as the shadows took her, her small hand gray and cold. He gripped the chisel tighter, torn between stepping through the gate and smashing it to dust. The pale architect's words echoed, "You are the architect now." Elias's skin, paler than ever, seemed to glow in the starlight, his veins stark like the silver in the tower's stones. The stolen book, tucked in his coat, burned against his chest, its pages heavy with secrets he barely understood. He'd built the spire as it demanded, carving eyes that watched from every angle. But the cost weighed on him. Tom, Clara, maybe Eldridge itself. The gate was awake, and it hungered. He climbed down, his boots slipping on the wet stone. The quarry was silent, the townsfolk gone, their torches snuffed out by fear. Elias entered the tower, the air inside cold and sharp, like breathing glass. The dome's light pulsed, its symbols, spirals, stars, eyes, moving across the walls, alive. He opened the stolen book, its pages flipping to a new design, a chamber beneath the tower, a heart to hold the gate's power. The script whispered, "Blood binds, stone sings, build deeper." Elias's heart sank. More building, more blood, but the pull was too strong. He grabbed his tools, a hammer, the humming chisel, a sack of pale stones from the quarry, and began. The floor at the dome's center was smooth, unmarked. He struck it, sparks flying, and the stone cracked like ice. Each blow sent tremors through the tower, the hum growing louder, vibrating in his teeth. Shadows stirred, watching but not attacking, their whispers soft, deeper, open. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time blurred inside the tower. Elias dug, carving a spiral stair that descended into darkness. The air grew colder, the walls tighter. Their stones etched with faint carvings of cosmic cities, spires piercing skies where stars bled. His hands, pale and steady, moved as if guided, shaping a chamber below. The stolen book lay open, its pages glowing, showing a vaulted room with a single altar at its center. The script read, "Place the heart, and the gate will breathe." Elias paused, sweat dripping despite the cold. A heart? He thought of Clara, of Tom, their faces twisted in the shadows. The pale architect's voice came, not from the air but within. "You know what it needs. Give, or it will take." He shook his head, refusing. "No more," he whispered, his voice echoing in the chamber. The shadows hissed, their shapes circling the stair. Elias raised the chisel, its hum flaring, and carved a protective symbol, a circle of stars, from the book. Light burst, driving the shadows back. The tower groaned, as if angry, but Elias kept working, his hands relentless. The chamber took shape, a Gothic vault with arches like ribs, walls carved with eyes that seemed to blink. At its center, he built the altar, a slab of pale stone veined with silver. The hum softened, but the air grew heavier, pressing on his chest. He felt the void watching, its presence vast, like an ocean waiting to swallow him. Clara's parents came at dawn, their faces haggard. "Where's our girl?" her mother sobbed, clutching a shawl. "You took her." Elias's throat tightened. "I didn't mean to," he said. "The tower. It took her." Her father lunged, grabbing Elias's coat. "Bring her back, or we'll burn it down." Elias pushed him away, gentle but firm. "I'm trying. I'll find her." They left, tears mixing with rage. Elias returned to the chamber, guilt clawing his gut. He worked faster, carving symbols to strengthen the altar. The stolen book showed a ritual, a drop of blood to seal the heart, to calm the gate. Not a life, just a drop. He hesitated, then pricked his finger with the chisel. Blood fell, sinking into the stone. The altar glowed, red light pulsing, and the hum steadied, like a beast soothed. But the shadows returned, stronger now. They flowed from the walls, their arms reaching, whispering Clara's name. Elias swung the chisel, light flaring, but they didn't retreat. One touched his arm, its cold burning through his sleeve. He stumbled, visions flooding in. Clara in a void, her hands building with light, her eyes empty. Was she alive? Trapped? He didn't know. He ran up the stair, sealing the chamber with a carved stone. The tower shook, light bursting from the dome. Outside, the sky was wrong. Stars spun in spirals, clouds forming eyes. Eldridge's fields withered further, grass turning gray, trees bending toward the tower. The townsfolk gathered, their shouts faint but angry. "Destroy it," they yelled, holding torches and pitchforks. Elias stood at the entrance, hammer raised. "You don't understand. It's a wonder, a gate to the stars." The mayor stepped forward, face grim. "It's a curse. It took Clara. It'll take us all." Before Elias could answer, the tower roared. Light poured from the dome, and shadows surged, scattering the crowd. A woman screamed, pointing at the sky. A star fell, burning red, crashing into the forest. The ground shook, and the hum became a scream, echoing in Elias's skull. He ran inside, the stolen book open in his hands. The pages showed a new design, a spire to pierce the dome, to channel the gate's power. The pale architect appeared, his coat shimmering like a night sky. "Finish it," he said. "The void calls." Elias's hands shook. "What about Clara?" The figure smiled, teeth sharp. "She builds with us. Give more, and you'll see her." Elias wanted to refuse, but the blueprint's pull was too strong. He climbed the scaffolding, carving the new spire. Each strike sent shocks through his body, his skin paler, his eyes brighter. The stolen book whispered, "Stone binds space, blood binds time." He pricked his finger again, letting blood drip onto the spire's stones. They glowed, the hum softening, but the void's presence grew, pressing against his mind. Visions came, Gothic cities of bone and shadow, stars screaming, Clara's hands carving light. He saw himself, pale and eternal, building forever in a void where time didn't exist. The pale architect stood beside him, laughing. "You are mine," he said. Elias shook his head, focusing on the spire. It rose, a needle of stone piercing the dome. The light steadied, but the shadows grew bolder, their whispers now a chant, "Open, now." Elias carved protective symbols, but they barely held. The tower felt alive, its stones warm, its hum a heartbeat. Clara's parents returned, with more townsfolk. "Give us our daughter!" her mother screamed. Elias faced them, guilt heavy. "I'm trying," he said. "The gate, it's not what I thought." The mayor raised a torch. "We'll burn it." Elias stood firm. "You can't, it's bigger than us." A shadow lunged, grabbing a man from the crowd. He screamed, vanishing into the stone. The townsfolk fled, their torches dropping in the mud. Elias ran inside, sealing the entrance with a carved stone. The tower shook, light pulsing. He felt Clara's presence, faint but there, in the void's echoes. He worked through the night, strengthening the spire. The stolen book showed a final ritual, a circle of blood to lock the gate, to keep the void at bay. Elias hesitated, his finger scarred from cuts. He pricked it again, drawing a circle on the altar. The hum quieted, the shadows fading, but the void's pull remained, tugging at his soul. The next day, Strange lights danced in Eldridge's sky, stars falling like rain. The forest spread, its pale vines wrapping houses. Children drew eyes in the dirt, their faces blank. Elias ignored it, his mind consumed by the spire. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing a city of twisted spires, shadows dancing, stars singing. "Join us," he said. "Build forever." Elias woke, his hands carving without thought. The spire was complete, its tip glowing like a star. The dome pulsed, the gate awake but sealed, for now. He felt Clara in the void, her voice faint. "Help me." He clutched the stolen book, vowing to find her. The townsfolk returned, their anger gone, replaced by fear. "What have you done?" The mayor whispered, staring at the sky. Elias didn't answer. He climbed the spire, the chisel humming. The void's echoes grew louder, showing glimpses of Clara, building, trapped, alive. He carved a new symbol, one from his dreams, a star with wings, meant to call her back. The tower shook, light flaring, and for a moment, he heard her voice clear. "Mr. Thorne." But the shadows surged, blocking the light. The pale architect appeared, his eyes glowing. "She is ours. Finish the gate or lose her forever." Elias's heart broke, but he kept, carving, his pale hands steady. The void's song was too strong, its wonders too vast. He saw himself building cities across stars, Gothic halls where time bled, shadows dancing in eternal night. The chapter ends with Elias atop the spire, the gate's light bathing him. The void sang, its echoes promising Clara's return, but at a price. Below, Eldridge withered, its people hiding from falling stars. Elias held the chisel, torn between saving Clara and opening the gate, knowing each choice could destroy him. Chapter 6. The labyrinth of stars. Elias clung to the spire's peak, the humming chisel burning in his hand as the tower's dome pulsed below. The night sky over Eldridge churned, stars spiraling into patterns that hurt to look at, their light sharp and cold. The air crackled with a strange energy, like the moment before lightning strikes, and the tower's hum vibrated in his bones, a song of stone and void. His skin, now ghostly pale, glowed faintly, his veins silver like the tower's stones. Clara's voice echoed in his mind, Mr. Thorne, faint but desperate, trapped somewhere beyond the gate. The pale architect's words haunted him. Finish the gate or lose her forever. The stolen book tucked in his coat felt heavier, its pages whispering secrets of cosmic builders and Gothic horrors. Elias had sealed the gate with blood, but it wasn't enough. The void still pressed against the world, leaking through the tower's stones. Shadows swirled at the base, their long arms reaching, their whispers chanting, "Open, build, become." He wanted to save Clara, but the gate's pull was stronger, promising wonders that made his heart race. A city of spires piercing starry voids, halls where time twisted and stars sang. He climbed down, the spire stones warm under his hands. The quarry was silent, Eldridge's lights dim in the distance. The townsfolk hid in their homes, terrified of the falling stars and pale vines creeping from the forest. Elias entered the tower, the air inside cold and thick, like breathing through cloth. The dome glowed red, its symbols, eyes, spirals, stars, moving across the walls, alive. The chamber below, with its altar of pale stone, hummed softly, the blood circle he'd drawn still glowing faintly. He opened the stolen book, its pages flipping to a new design, a labyrinth beneath the chamber, a maze of tunnels to channel the gate's power. The script read, "Stone weaves space, blood weaves time, build the labyrinth, and find her." Elias's heart leapt. Find Clara? The book hadn't lied before, but its promises came with costs. Tom was gone, Clara taken, and Eldridge was dying. Yet the blueprint's pull was relentless, their whispers blending with the tower's hum. He grabbed his tools, hammer, chisel, a sack of pale stones, and descended the spiral stair to the chamber. The air grew colder, the walls tighter. There, carvings of cosmic cities glowing faintly. At the altar, he struck the floor, the humming chisel sparking. The stone split, revealing a dark tunnel below. Elias hesitated, the shadows watching from the corners. Their whispers grew louder, deeper, open. He climbed down, lantern in hand. The tunnel was narrow, its walls etched with stars that seemed to move. The air was heavy, pressing on his chest, and the hum vibrated in his skull. He carved as he went, shaping tunnels that twisted in impossible ways, looping back on themselves like the forest paths. The stolen book guided him, its design showing a labyrinth of arches and chambers, each one a knot in the fabric of space. The script whispered, "The labyrinth leads to her. Build and see." Hours blurred into days, or was it minutes? Time felt wrong here, stretching and folding. Elias's hands, pale and steady, carved without rest, shaping arches that bent light, walls that sang with the void's echoes. Visions came, Clara in a black sea, her hands building with light, her face calm but empty. He called her name, but the shadows answered, their voices a chorus. "She is ours. Build." The labyrinth grew, its tunnels sprawling like veins under the tower. Elias built chambers with domed ceilings, their stones carved with eyes that watched. Each room hummed, the air alive with starlight. He found relics in the walls, bones that weren't human, tools that glowed, scraps of paper with unreadable script. One scrap showed a drawing of Clara, her eyes glowing, her hands carving stone. Elias's heart ached. Was she alive, or was the void lying? He kept building, driven by guilt and hope. The stolen book showed a central chamber, a nexus where the labyrinth's paths met. There, he'd find the gate's heart, and maybe Clara. He carved faster, his hands blistered, his body tireless. His skin was paler now, his eyes bright with starlight. The pale architect's knowledge had changed him, compressing centuries of cosmic lore into his mind. He knew how to shape stone to trap time, how to carve stars into walls, but he didn't know if he was saving Clara or dooming her. The townsfolk came again, their torches weak against the tower's glow. The mayor shouted, "Elias, stop!" The sky's breaking! Elias peeked from the tunnel, seeing stars fall like rain, their light burning fields. The forest's pale vines had reached Eldridge, wrapping houses in thorny webs. Children stood outside, drawing spirals in the dirt, their eyes blank. "It's almost done," Elias called back, his voice hoarse. "I'll find her." The mayor shook his head. "You're killing us all." A star fell, crashing near the quarry. The ground shook and shadows surged from the tower, scattering the crowd. Elias ducked back into the tunnel, his heart pounding. The shadows followed, their whispers sharp. Blood. Now. He carved a protective symbol, a star with wings, and light flared, driving them back. The tunnel groaned, stone shifting, but Elias kept going, deeper into the labyrinth. At last, he reached the central chamber. It was vast, its ceiling a dome of pale stone, carved with 1,000 eyes. At its center stood a pillar, veined with silver, pulsing like a heart. The stolen book lay open, its pages showing a ritual. Blood on the pillar. Open the path. Elias hesitated, his finger scarred from past cuts. He pricked it, letting a drop fall. The pillar glowed, red light flooding the chamber. The hum became a scream, and the eyes on the walls blinked, staring. A vision hit him. Clara in a void, her hands carving a spire, her voice faint. "Help me." Behind her, shadows danced, their arms weaving light into stone. The pale architect stood watching, his coat a swirl of stars. "She builds for us," he said. "Give more, and she's yours." Elias shook his head, tears falling. No more blood. The shadows lunged, their cold burning his skin. He swung the chisel, light flaring, but they pressed closer, whispering Clara's name. He ran to the pillar, carving the star with wings symbol. The chamber shook, light pulsing, and the shadows retreated. Clara's voice came again, clearer. "I'm here." Elias's heart raced. He carved faster, shaping the pillar into a gate, a tall arch etched with stars. The stolen book glowed, its script changing. Step through. Find her. He hesitated, the void's pull stronger than ever. The hum was deafening, the air alive with starlight. Outside, Eldridge screamed. Stars fell, setting the forest ablaze. The townsfolk fled, their homes crumbling under pale vines. Elias ignored it, his mind on Clara. He stepped toward the gate, the chisel humming in his hand. The pale architect appeared, his eyes glowing under his hat. "One step," he said, "and you'll see wonders." Elias's hand shook. "Will Clara be there?" The figure smiled. "She is part of it now. Step through, and know." He took a step, then stopped. The void song was beautiful. Gothic cities of bone and light, spires piercing eternal night. But Clara's face held him back. He turned, carving a new symbol, a circle to seal the gate. Light flared, the hum softening, but the void's presence remained, angry. The townsfolk returned, fewer now, their faces pale. "It's over," the mayor said. "Leave it, Elias." "I can't," he whispered. "She's in there." He worked through the night, strengthening the gate. The stolen book showed a new design, a capstone to lock the labyrinth, to keep the void at bay. Elias climbed back to the tower's dome, carving the capstone from a single pale stone. Each strike sent sparks, the hum steadying. The shadows watched, silent now, their whispers faint. At dawn, he placed the capstone, sealing the labyrinth. The tower shook, light fading from the dome. Clara's voice came one last time, soft. "Thank you." Elias fell to his knees, tears streaming. Had he saved her or lost her forever? The sky cleared, the stars calming. Eldridge was quiet, its fields burned, its houses tangled in vines. The townsfolk stared at the tower, fear in their eyes. Elias stood, the chisel still in his hand. The pale architect appeared, his voice low. "The gate waits. Build on, or she is lost." Elias looked at the stars, their song fainter now. The stolen book glowed, its pages showing a new city. Bigger, grander, a labyrinth of spires across the void. He saw Clara there, building, her hands pale like his. The chapter ends with Elias holding the chisel. The towers hum soft but alive. The void's echoes promised wonders, but Clara's fate hung heavy. Eldridge lay in ruins, its people broken, and Elias stood at the edge of the gate, torn between saving one girl and building for eternity. Chapter 7. Broken Mirrors of Time. Elias stood at the tower's entrance, the humming chisel heavy in his hand, its faint glow casting shadows on the pale stones. The quarry around him was silent, the air thick with the scent of ash from the forest fires sparked by falling stars. Eldridge lay in ruins beyond, its fields blackened, houses choked by pale, thorny vines that seemed to pulse with life. The tower's dome no longer glowed, its light sealed by the capstone Elias had carved, but the hum persisted, low and steady, vibrating in his chest like a second heartbeat. His skin, now ghostly white, shimmered faintly, his eyes reflecting starlight that shouldn't be there. Clara's voice, "Thank you," echoed in his mind, faint but sharp, pulling at his heart. Was she saved, or lost forever in the void? The stolen book, tucked in his coat, burned against his skin, its pages whispering of new designs. A city of spires to span the cosmos, Gothic halls where time bent and stars wept. The pale architect's words haunted him. Build on, or she is lost. Elias wanted to believe Clara was alive, trapped in the labyrinth he'd built beneath the tower, but doubt gnawed at him. The gate was sealed, but the void's presence lingered, pressing against the world like a storm about to break. He entered the tower, the air cold and heavy, like stepping into a frozen sea. The walls were etched with symbols, eyes, spirals, stars, that seemed to watch, their lines shifting when he blinked. The spiral stair to the labyrinth below called to him, its darkness promising answers. Elias lit a lantern, its weak light barely piercing the gloom. He descended, the stolen book open in his hand, its pages flipping to a new design. A chamber of mirrors to reflect the void, to see what lay beyond. The script read, "Mirrors hold time. Blood holds truth. Build and find her." Elias's heart raced. Find Clara. The words were a lifeline, but the cost, always blood, made his stomach twist. Tom's face flashed in his mind, twisted in the shadows, and Clara's gray hand, cold from their touch. He pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the task. The labyrinth's central chamber with its pulsing pillar was where he'd start. The chamber was vast, its domed ceiling carved with 1,000 eyes, their stone gazes alive in the lantern's glow. The pillar at the center, veined with silver, hummed softly, its surface warm under his touch. Elias set to work, carving a frame of pale stones around the pillar. The stolen book guided him, showing mirrors, not glass, but polished stone, cut to reflect the void's light. Each mirror was a slab, smooth as water, etched with symbols that sang when touched. He worked, tirelessly, his pale hand steady despite the ache in his bones. The labyrinth's air was thick, pressing on his lungs, and the shadows watched, their whispers soft. Build. See. Hours stretched into days, or was it moments? Time felt broken here, folding in on itself. Elias carved and placed the mirrors, each one reflecting the pillar's glow, creating a kaleidoscope of light that hurt his eyes. The reflections showed strange things, stars spinning, spires rising from black seas, Clara's face fleeting and pale. One mirror showed her clearly, her hands carving light, her eyes empty. Elias called her name, but the reflection shimmered and faded. The pale architect's voice came, low and smooth, from the shadows. She is there, beyond the mirrors. Build and reach her. Elias's throat tightened. What do you want? Why her? The figure stepped forward, his coat a swirl of starlight, his face hidden under his hat. The void needs hands. Hers, yours, it matters not. The city must rise. Elias gripped the chisel, anger rising. I won't give more lives. The figure laughed, a sound like cracking stone. You already have. Finish the mirrors and... See? Elias turned back to the mirrors, his hands moving as if possessed. He carved the final slab, its surface reflecting the chamber in impossible ways, angles that bent, shadows that danced alone. He placed it, completing the circle around, the pillar. The mirrors hummed, their light converging, forming a beam that struck the ceiling. The eyes blinked, and the chamber shook, the hum becoming a roar. A vision hit him. Clara in a void, her hands weaving light into spires, her voice a whisper. Help me. Behind her, a city of bone and shadow rose, its Gothic arches piercing a sky, where stars screamed. The pale architect stood beside her, guiding her hands. Elias reached for the mirror, his fingers brushing its surface. It was cold, like touching a star, and for a moment he felt her. Clara, alive, trapped. The shadows surged, their arms wrapping the mirrors. Elias swung the chisel, light flaring, but they pressed closer, whispering, blood, now. The stolen book glowed, its script clear, a drop to see, a life to open. Elias hesitated, his finger scarred from past cuts. He pricked it, letting blood drip onto the pillar. The mirrors glowed brighter, their reflections sharpening. Clara appeared in every one, her hands carving, her face calm but hollow. Clara, Elias shouted, his voice echoing. The mirrors answered, their images fracturing. Clara building, Clara screaming, Clara fading. The shadows laughed, their voices a chorus. She is ours. Elias smashed the chisel against a mirror, cracked spider webbing across its surface. The chamber shook, light pulsing, and the shadows retreated. Clara's image vanished, but her voice lingered. Don't stop. He fell, to his knees, tears falling. Had he broken the way to her, or saved her from the void? The pale architect appeared, his eyes glowing under his hat. "You fight the inevitable," he said. "The mirrors show truth. Build on, or lose all." Elias stood, clutching the book. "I'll find her my way." He climbed back to the tower's dome, the mirror's light fading behind him. The sky outside was wrong. Stars fell in spirals, burning the forest. Eldridge's ruins glowed faintly, pale vines wrapping tighter. The townsfolk gathered, fewer now, their faces gaunt. The mayor approached, his voice trembling. "You've doomed us, Elias. The sky's breaking." "It's not done," Elias said, his voice steady. "I'll fix it." He returned to the labyrinth, carving new mirrors to replace the broken one. Each slab was heavier, the chisel's hum weaker. The stolen book showed a new design, a spiral of mirrors to focus the gate's power, to call Clara back. Elias worked through the night, his hands blistered, his body tireless. The shadows watched, silent but close, their whispers faint. Blood. Time. At dawn, he finished the spiral. The mirrors glowed, their light converging into a single beam that pierced the pillar. The chamber shook, and Clara's voice came, clear. "I'm here." Elias touched a mirror, his hand passing through. The void opened, a black sea. Stars spinning, spires rising. Clara stood there, her hands pale, her eyes glowing. "Mr. Thorne," she whispered. "It's beautiful, but it hurts." Elias reached for her, but the shadows pulled her back. The pale architect appeared, laughing. "She builds for us. Give more, and she's yours." Elias pulled his hand back, the mirror sealing. He carved a protective symbol, a star with eyes, around the pillar. Light flared, the hum softening, but the void's presence grew, angry. The mirrors cracked, their reflections showing fragments of Clara, of Eldridge, of himself, pale, eternal, lost. The townsfolk came again, torches weak. "It's over," the mayor said. "Leave it, Elias." "I can't," he replied, his voice breaking. "She's in there." He worked on, strengthening the spiral. The stolen book showed a final ritual, a circle of blood to lock the mirrors, to hold the void. Elias pricked his finger, drawing the circle. The hum quieted, the shadows fading, but Clara's voice grew fainter, lost in the void's song, the whelm. Sky worsened, stars falling like rain. Eldridge's vines spread, choking streets. Children stood silent, their eyes glowing. Elias ignored it, his mind on the mirrors. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing a city of twisted spires, shadows, dancing, Clara building beside him. "Join us," he said. "Build forever." Elias woke, his hands carving without thought. The spiral was complete, its mirrors reflecting a single truth. Clara, trapped, her hands pale like his. He touched a mirror, feeling her presence, but the shadows surged, blocking the light. The chapter ends with Elias standing in the labyrinth, the mirrors glowing around him. The void song promised Clara's return, but the cost loomed. More blood, more lives. Eldridge crumbled, its people fleeing, and Elias held the chisel, torn between saving Clara and breaking the gate, knowing the mirrors held time, but time was running out. Chapter 8. The architect's secret Elias stood in the labyrinth's central chamber, surrounded by the glowing mirrors, their fractured surfaces reflecting shards of starlight and shadow. The humming chisel in his hand felt heavier, its faint warmth pulsing like a dying heart. The tower above was silent, its dome no longer blazing, but the low hum persisted, vibrating through the pale stones and into his bones. His skin, ghostly white, shimmered in the mirror's light, his eyes burning with the void's eerie glow. Clara's voice, "It's beautiful, but it hurts," echoed in his mind, a desperate plea from beyond the gate. The pale architect's promise haunted him, "Give more, and she's yours." But Elias knew the cost was growing. Tom, Clara, Eldridge itself. The void was hungry, and he was running out of time. The stolen book lay open on the chamber's pillar, its pages glowing faintly, showing a new design, a crypt beneath the labyrinth, a hidden vault to hold the architect's secret. The script whispered, "Stone hides truth. Blood reveals it. Build and know." Elias's heart pounded. Know what? The truth about Clara, the gate, or the pale architect himself? The mirrors around him showed fragments, Clara carving light, spires rising in a black void, his own face, pale and changed. He wanted to save her, but the void's pull was relentless, promising a city of Gothic spires where stars sang and time broke. He grabbed his tools, hammer, chisel, a sack of pale stones, and descended deeper into the labyrinth. The tunnels twisted, their walls carved with stars that moved like eyes. The air was cold, thick with the scent of damp stone and something sharper, like blood. The shadows followed, their whispers soft but constant. Deeper. Reveal. Elias's lantern flickered, its light weak against the dark. He carved as he went, shaping a spiral stair that plunged into the earth, each step etched with symbols from the book. Eyes, wings, spirals that hurt to see. Time slipped away, hours folding into moments. The labyrinth seemed alive, its walls shifting, guiding him to a cavern below. The stolen book showed a crypt, a vaulted chamber with a single stone door, sealed with blood. Elias's hands, pale and steady, carved without rest, shaping arches that bent light, walls that hummed with the void's echoes. Visions came. Clara in a void, her hands weaving starlight into stone, her face empty. The pale architect stood beside her, his coat a swirl of stars, his voice smooth. She builds for us. Build and know. Elias reached the cavern, its ceiling, a dome of pale stone carved with 1,000 stars. At its center stood a slab, smooth and veined with silver, like the tower's stones. The book called it the crypt's door, a seal to hide the architect's secret. Elias carved symbols around it, his chisel sparking with each strike. The shadows watched, their long arms reaching but not touching. Their whispers grew louder. Blood. Truth. He paused, his fingers scarred from past cuts. The book demanded blood, to open the door, but every drop he gave made the void stronger. He thought of Clara, trapped, and Tom, lost to the shadows. Could he risk more? The pale architect appeared, stepping from a mirror's reflection, his hat low, his smile sharp. "You hesitate," he said, "but the secret is yours. Open the door and see. What's inside?" Elias demanded, his voice echoing. "Clara? The truth?" The figure laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "All truths are one. The void, the girl, you. Open and become." Elias's stomach twisted. He pricked his finger, letting a drop fall onto the slab. It glowed, red light pulsing, and the stone door groaned, sliding open. Darkness poured out, cold and heavy, carrying whispers that weren't human, voices of stars, of things older than time. Elias raised his lantern, stepping inside. The crypt was small, its walls carved with scenes, cosmic builders shaping galaxies, Gothic halls where shadows danced, stars falling into black seas. At the center stood a pedestal, holding a single object, a shard of stone, black as night, pulsing with light like a trapped star. The stolen book glowed, its pages flipping to a new script, the heart of the architect. Place it and know. Elias touched the shard, its surface burning cold. Visions flooded in. The pale architect, not one but many, building across eons, their hands pale, their eyes starry. They shaped worlds, then broke them, feeding the void with blood and stone. Clara appeared, her hands carving light, her voice faint. "It's him. He's the secret." Elias staggered, the shard heavy in his hand. The architect wasn't just a man, he was the void, a force that built and consumed. The shadows surged, their whispers a scream. "Place it. Open." Elias swung the chisel, light flaring, but the shadows pressed closer, their cold burning his skin. He ran to the pedestal, hesitating. If he placed the shard, the gate would open fully, and Clara might be lost forever. If he didn't, the void might take her anyway. He carved a protective symbol, a star with wings, around the pedestal. Light burst, the shadows retreating, but the crypt shook, stones cracking. Clara's voice came again, "Don't let him win." Elias smashed the chisel against the shard, cracks forming. The crypt roared, light pulsing, and the shadows screamed, their forms dissolving. The pale architect appeared, his eyes blazing. "You break what you cannot understand," he said. "The secret is eternity. Place the shard or lose her." Elias's heart broke. "I won't feed you." He ran from the crypt, sealing the door with a carved stone. The tower above shook, its hum deafening. Outside, Eldridge was chaos. Stars fell, burning houses, pale vines choking streets. The townsfolk gathered, their faces pale, their eyes glowing faintly. The mayor shouted, "You've killed us, Elias!" "It's not me!" he yelled, clutching the book. "It's him, the architect!" A star crashed near the quarry, the ground splitting. Shadows poured from the cracks, their arms wrapping the tower. Elias ran inside, descending to the crypt. He carved more symbols, strengthening the seal. The shadows hissed, but the hum softened, the light fading. Clara's parents came, their voices desperate. "Where's our girl?" Her mother sobbed. Elias's throat tightened. "I'm trying." "She's in there, but he wants her." They left, tears falling. Elias worked through the night, carving a new door to replace the cracked one. The stolen book showed a ritual, a circle of blood to lock the crypt, to hide the shard. He pricked his finger, drawing the circle. The hum quieted, the shadows fading. But the void's presence grew, angry and vast. The sky worsened, stars falling like rain. Eldridge's vines spread, wrapping the tower's base. Children stood in the streets, their eyes starry, drawing spirals that glowed. Elias ignored it, his mind on the crypt. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing a city of bone and shadow, Clara building beside him. "Join us," he said. "The secret is yours." Elias woke, his hands carving without thought. The new door was complete, its symbols glowing, sealing the shard. But Clara's voice grew fainter, lost in the void's song. He climbed to the tower's dome, the chisel humming weakly. The sky was a storm of stars, their light burning his eyes. He carved a new symbol, a circle of eyes, to call Clara back. The tower shook, light flaring, and her voice came clear. "Mr. Thorne, I'm scared." Elias reached for the dome, feeling her presence, but the shadows surged, blocking the light. The pale architect appeared, his coat a void. "She is mine," he said. "Finish the gate, or she fades." Elias's hands shook. He carved faster, strengthening the dome. The stolen book showed a new design, a spire to pierce the sky, to channel the void's power. He climbed the scaffolding, his body tireless, his mind torn. The void sang, promising wonders, Gothic cities, stars screaming, Clara alive but changed. The townsfolk returned, fewer now, their faces gaunt. "Stop, Elias," the mayor begged. "The world's breaking." "I can't," Elias whispered. "She's in there." He placed the final stone, the spire complete. The dome glowed, light piercing the sky. Clara's voice came one last time. "Help me." Elias touched the stone, feeling the void. The pale architect laughed, his voice everywhere. "The secret is you. Build and become." The chapter ends with Elias atop the spire, the gate's light bathing him. The void's song promised Clara, but the architect's secret loomed. Elias was part of it, his hands pale, his fate tied to the void. Eldridge burned, its people lost, and Elias held the chisel, torn between saving Clara and breaking the gate, knowing the truth might destroy him. Chapter 9. Whispers of the cosmos. Elias stood atop the tower's spire, the humming chisel trembling in his pale hand, its faint glow swallowed by the night. The dome below pulsed with a sickly red light, casting shadows that writhed like living things across the pale stones. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of ash and ozone, as if the sky itself was burning. Stars spiraled above Eldridge, their patterns twisting into shapes that made his eyes ache. Eyes, wings, spirals that seemed to scream. The tower's hum was a constant pulse, vibrating in his chest, blending with the void's whispers. Build, open, become. His skin, ghostly white, shimmered with starlight, his veins silver like the tower's stones. Clara's voice, "Help me," echoed. In his mind, faint but sharp, a knife of guilt and hope. The stolen book, pressed against his chest, burned with a cold fire, its pages whispering of a city beyond the gate, a Gothic labyrinth of spires piercing a sky where stars wept blood. The pale architect's secret weighed heavy. Elias was part of the void, his hands tied to its hunger. He'd sealed the crypt, hiding the black shard that pulsed like a star, but the gate was awake, its power leaking into Eldridge. The town was dying, fields blackened, houses choked by pale angle system, pale vines, children drawing alien symbols in the dirt. Elias's heart ached. He wanted to save Clara, but the void's pull was relentless, promising wonders and horrors beyond imagining. He descended the spire, his boots slipping on the slick stone. The quarry was silent, the air thick with the void's presence. Inside, the tower, the dome's red glow bathed the walls, its symbols, eyes, stars, spirals moving like living things. Elias opened the stolen book, its pages flipping to a new design. A crown of spires to encircle the dome, to focus the gate's power and call Clara back. The script read, "Blood binds the stars, stone binds the void. Build and hear her." Elias's throat tightened. More blood. Always blood. He thought of Clara, trapped in the void, her hands carving light. He grabbed his tools, hammer, chisel, a sack of pale stones, and climbed to the dome's rim. The shadows followed, their whispers, soft but constant. Build. Call. He carved the first spire, its stone warm, humming with the void's energy. Each strike of the chisel sent sparks flying, the hum growing louder, vibrating in his teeth. Days blurred into nights, time folding in the tower's strange air. Elias worked tirelessly, his pale hands steady, his body tireless. The crown of spires rose, jagged, Gothic, their tips piercing the sky. The stolen book guided him, its knowledge compressing into his mind, how to shape stone to trap starlight, how to carve time itself. Visions came, Clara in a void, her hands pale, her eyes starry, building spires beside the pale architect. "She is ours," he said in Elias's mind. "Give more, and she's yours." The townsfolk came at dawn, their faces gaunt, their torches weak. The mayor stood at the quarry's edge, his voice trembling. "Elias, the sky's breaking. Stars are falling. Stop this." "I'm trying to save her," Elias shouted, his voice raw. "Clara's in there." The mayor shook his head. "You're killing us all." A star fell, crashing into the forest, the ground shaking. Shadows surged from the tower, their long arms scattering the crowd. Elias ran inside, sealing the entrance with a carved stone. The dome's light pulsed, the shadows whispering Clara's name. He climbed to the spires, carving faster, his hands blistered. The stolen book showed a ritual, a circle of blood to bind the spires, to call the void's heart. Elias hesitated, his finger scarred from past cuts. The shadows pressed closer, their cold burning his skin. He pricked his finger, letting blood drip onto the spire's tip. The dome roared, light flaring, and Clara's voice came clear. "Mr. Thorne, I see you." Elias's heart leapt. He touched the spire, feeling her presence, but the shadow surged, blocking the light. The pale architect appeared, his coat a swirl of starlight, his eyes glowing under his hat. "The gate is yours," he said. "Open it, and she returns." Elias's voice shook. "What's the cost?" "Everything," the figure said, laughing. "And nothing. You are the void now." Elias carved a protective symbol, a star with eyes around the spire. Light burst, the shadows retreating, but the dome's hum grew louder, the air crackling. He saw Clara in his mind, her hands carving light, her face pale but alive. "Hold on," he whispered, carving another spire. The crown grew, its stones glowing, the void's song louder, a chorus of stars, screaming. The townsfolk returned, fewer now, their eyes glowing faintly. "It's over," the mayor said. "Leave it, Elias." "I can't," he replied, tears falling. "She's alive." He worked through the night, the spires complete. The dome's light pierced the sky, stars spiraling above. Clara's voice came again. "It's beautiful, but it hurts." Elias touched the spire, his hand passing through. The void opened, a black sea, spires rising. Clara standing there, her hands pale, her eyes starry. "Mr. Thorne," she whispered, "don't let him win." The pale architect laughed, his voice everywhere. "She builds for me. Finish the gate or she fades." Elias pulled back, carving a new symbol, a circle to seal the spires. Light flared, the hum softening, but the void's presence grew, angry. The shadows surged, their whispers a scream. Blood. Now. Elias pricked his finger again, drawing a circle around the dome. The hum quieted, but Clara's voice faded, lost in the void's song. The sky worsened, stars falling like rain. Eldridge's vines spread, choking the tower's base. Children stood silent, their eyes starry, drawing spirals that glowed. Elias ignored it, his mind on the spires. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing a city of bone and shadow. Clara, building beside him. "Join us," he said. "The cosmos whispers your name." Elias woke, his hands carving without thought. The crown was complete, its spires glowing like stars. He climbed to the highest one, the chisel humming weakly. The void's song was deafening, promising Clara's return, but at a price. He saw her in the spire's reflection, her hands pale, her voice faint. "Help me." He carved a final symbol, a star with wings, to call her back. The tower shook, light flaring, and Clara's voice came clear. "I'm here." Elias reached for the spire, his hand trembling. The void opened wider, showing a city of Gothic spires, stars screaming, Clara building beside the architect. The pale architect appeared, his eyes blazing. "The secret is you," he said. "Your hands, your blood, mine. Open the gate and..." "Become." Elias's heart broke. "I won't." He smashed the chisel against the spire, cracks forming. The dome roared, light pulsing, and the shadows screamed, dissolving. Clara's voice came one last time. "Thank you." The void's song faltered, the spires dimming. Elias fell to his knees, tears streaming, the chisel slipping from his hand. The townsfolk gathered below, their faces pale. "It's done," the mayor whispered, staring at the sky. The stars calmed, but Eldridge was a ruin, its people broken. Elias stood, the stolen book glowing faintly. The architect's secret was clear. The gate was him, his hands, his will. But Clara was still out there, her fate tied to the void. The chapter ends with Elias holding the broken chisel, the tower's hum faint but alive. The void's whispers promised Clara's return, but the architect's secret loomed. Elias was part of it, his hands pale, his soul bound to the gate. Eldridge lay in ashes, its people lost, and Elias stood at the spire's edge, torn between saving Clara and breaking the void, knowing the cosmos held both. Chapter 10. The crumbling facade Elias stood on the tower's highest spire, the broken chisel clutched in his trembling hand, its once warm hum now a faint flicker. The dome below pulsed weakly, its red light fading into the pale stones, casting shadows that twitched like dying flames. The air was thick with ash and the sharp tang of starlight. The sky above Eldridge a chaos of spiraling stars, their patterns twisting into jagged eyes and claws. The tower's hum vibrated in his chest, softer now but still alive, a heartbeat that refused to stop. His skin, ghostly pale, glowed faintly, his veins silver like the stones, his eyes burning with the void's eerie light. Clara's final words, "Thank you," cut through his mind, a mix of hope and despair. Was she free, or lost forever in the void? The stolen book pressed against his chest felt cold, its pages silent for the first time. The pale architect's secret had unraveled. Elias was part of the void, his hands, his blood, his will bound to the gate. He'd smashed the spire, dimming the gate's power, but the void still pressed against the world, leaking through the tower's cracks. Eldridge was a ruin, fields burned to ash, houses choked by pale, thorny vines, children standing silent, with starry eyes, drawing spirals in the dirt. The townsfolk, those who remained, watched from a distance, their faces gaunt, their torches weak. Elias descended the spire, his boots scraping the slick stone. The quarry was a graveyard of broken tools and scattered stones, the air heavy with the void's presence. Inside the tower, the dome's light was faint, its symbols, eyes, stars, spirals, still but watchful. The labyrinth below called to him, its tunnels promising answers. He opened the stolen book, its pages flipping to a new design, a facade. To cloak the tower, to hide the gate from the void. The script read, "Stone masks truth, blood seals lies, build and save her." His heart leapt. Save Clara. The words were a spark in the dark, but the cost, more blood, twisted his gut. He thought of Tom, swallowed by shadows, and Clara, her gray hand cold from their touch. He grabbed his tools, hammer, a new chisel, a sack of pale stones, and climbed to the dome's base. The shadows stirred, their whispers faint. Build. Hide. He carved the first stone, shaping a wall to encircle the dome, its surface etched with symbols to mask the gate's power. Days blurred into nights, time slipping in the tower's strange air. Elias worked without rest, his pale hands steady, his body driven by guilt and hope. The facade rose, a Gothic veil of arches and spires, their lines soft to hide the tower's sharp angles. The stolen book guided him, its knowledge compressing into his mind, how to carve stone to bend light, how to weave lies into walls. Visions came. Clara in a void, her hands pale, her eyes starry, building spires beside the pale architect. She is ours, he said in Elias's mind. Build and save her. The townsfolk came at dawn, their numbers dwindling. The mayor stood at the quarry's edge, his voice weak. Elias, the sky's worse. Stars are eating the world. Stop this. I'm trying to fix it, Elias shouted, his voice raw. Clara's in there. The mayor shook his head. You're breaking everything. A star fell, crashing near the tower, the ground splitting. Shadows poured from the cracks, their long arms reaching. Elias ran inside, sealing the entrance with a carved stone. The dome's light flickered, the shadows whispering Clara's name. He climbed to the facade, carving faster, his hands scarred. The stolen book showed a ritual, a circle of blood to bind the facade, to hide the gate. Elias hesitated, his finger raw from cuts. The shadows pressed closer, their cold stinging his skin. He pricked his finger, letting blood drip onto the stone. The facade glowed, light flaring, and Clara's voice came, faint but clear. Mr. Thorne, I'm still here. Elias touched the stone, feeling her presence, but the shadows surged, blocking the light. The pale architect appeared, his coat a swirl of starlight, his eyes blazing under his hat. The facade is weak, he said. Open the gate and she returns. Elias's voice shook. You lie. You want the void. The figure laughed, a sound like shattering stone. You are the void. Build or lose her. Elias carved a protective symbol, a star with claws around the facade. Light burst, the shadows retreating, but the dome's hum grew louder, the air crackling. He saw Clara in his mind, her hands carving light, her face pale but alive. Hold on, he whispered, carving another stone. The facade grew, its arches hiding the dome's glow. The void's song softening, a whisper of stars, not a scream. The townsfolk returned, their eyes glowing faintly. It's over, the mayor said. Leave it, Elias. I can't, he replied, tears falling. She's alive. He worked through the night, the facade nearly complete. The dome's light dimmed, stars calming above. Clara's voice came again. "It's cold, Mr. Thorne." Elias touched the stone, his hand trembling. The void opened. A black sea, spires rising, Clara standing there, her hands pale, her eyes starry. "Don't let him win," she whispered. The pale architect laughed, his voice everywhere. "She builds for me. Finish the gate or she fades." Elias carved a new symbol, a circle to seal the facade. Light flared, the hum softening, but the void's presence grew, angry. The shadows surged, their whispers a scream. Blood. Now. Elias pricked his finger again, drawing a circle around the facade. The hum quieted, but Clara's voice faded, lost in the void's whispers. The sky worsened, stars falling like ash. Eldridge's vines spread, wrapping the tower's base. Children stood silent, their eyes starry, drawing eyes that glowed. Elias ignored it, his mind on the facade. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing a city of bone and shadow, Clara building beside him. "Join us," he said. "The cosmos whispers your name." Elias woke, his hands carving without thought. The facade was complete, its arches hiding the dome's glow. He climbed to the highest spire, the new chisel humming weakly. The void's song was faint, promising Clara's return, but at a cost. He saw her in the facade's reflection, her hands pale, her voice faint. "Help me." He carved a final symbol, a star with wings, to call her back. The tower shook, light flaring, and Clara's voice came, clear. "I'm here." Elias reached for the stone, his hand passing through. The void opened wider, showing a city of Gothic spires, stars screaming, Clara building beside the architect. The pale architect appeared, his eyes blazing. "The facade crumbles," he said. "Your hands, your blood, mine. Open the gate and become." Elias's heart broke. "I won't." He smashed the chisel against the facade, cracks forming. The dome roared, light pulsing, and the shadows screamed, dissolving. Clara's voice came one last time. "Thank you." The void's song faltered, the facade dimming. Elias fell to his knees, tears streaming, the chisel slipping from his hand. The townsfolk gathered below, their faces pale. "It's done," the mayor whispered, staring at the sky. The stars calmed, but Eldridge was ash, its people broken. Elias stood, the stolen book silent. The architect's secret was his own fate, his hands, his will, bound to the void. But Clara was still out there, her fate tied to the gate. The chapter ends with Elias holding the broken chisel, the tower's hum faint but alive. The void's whispers promised Clara, but the facade was crumbling, revealing the gate's hunger. Eldridge lay in ruins, its people lost, and Elias stood at the spire's edge, torn between saving Clara and breaking the void, knowing the cosmos held both, truth and ruin. Chapter 11. Eternal Night's Design. Elias stood at the edge of the tower's crumbling facade, the broken chisel in his pale hand, its faint hum barely a whisper now. The dome below flickered with a dying red light, casting jagged shadows across the pale stones that seemed to breathe. The air was thick with ash and the sharp sting of starlight. The sky above Eldridge a churning void of spiraling stars, their patterns forming claws and eyes that screamed silently. The tower's hum pulsed weakly in his chest, a fading heartbeat. But the void's presence pressed harder, leaking through the cracks in the facade like blood from a wound. His skin, ghostly white, glowed with an eerie sheen, his veins silver like the tower's stones, his eyes burning with the void's cold fire. Clara's voice, "Thank you," lingered in his mind, a faint cry of hope or despair, he couldn't tell. The pale architect's secret burned within him. Elias was the void's tool, his hands, his blood, its key to breaking the world. The stolen book, cold against his chest, was silent, its pages blank for the first time. The facade he'd built to hide the gate was crumbling, its Gothic arches splintering, revealing the dome's hungry glow. Eldridge was a wasteland, fields reduced to ash, houses strangled by pale, thorny vines that pulsed like veins, children standing silent with starry eyes, sketching spirals that glowed in the dirt. The few townsfolk left watched from the quarry's edge, their faces hollow, their torches flickering like dying stars. Elias's heart ached for Clara, trapped in the void, her hands pale, her voice faint. He'd tried to save her, but the gates. Hunger grew, and the pale architect's words echoed. Open the gate and become. He descended the facade, his boots crunching on broken stone. The quarry was a graveyard of shattered tools and scattered rocks, the air heavy with the void's weight. Inside the tower, the dome's light flickered, its symbols, eyes, stars, spirals, watching, still but alive. The labyrinth below called, its tunnels promising answers. Elias opened the stolen book, its pages flickering to life with a new design. A crown of thorns to bind the dome, to chain the void's power. The script read, stone traps light, blood traps time, build and hold. His heart leapt. Hold Clara. The words sparked hope, but the cost, blood again, twisted his gut. He thought of Tom, swallowed by shadows, and Clara, her gray hand cold from their touch. He grabbed his tools, hammer, a new chisel carved from pale stone, a sack of quarry rocks, and climbed to the dome's rim. The shadows stirred, their whispers faint. Build, bind. He carved the first thorn, a jagged spike of stone, its surface etched with symbols to cage the void's light. Days melted into nights. Time bending in the tower's strange air, Elias worked without rest, his pale hands steady, his body driven by guilt and desperation. The crown of thorns rose, Gothic, sharp, its spikes piercing the sky like claws. The stolen book guided him, its knowledge compressing into his mind. How to shape stone to trap starlight, how to carve time into spikes. Visions came. Clara in a void, her hands weaving light into spires, her eyes starry, her face empty. She is ours, the pale architect said in his mind. Build and hold her. The townsfolk came at dawn, their numbers dwindling to a handful. The mayor stood at the quarry's edge, his voice broken. Elias, the sky's gone mad. The stars are eating us. Stop. I'm saving her. Elias shouted, his voice raw. Clara's alive! The mayor shook his head, tears falling. You're killing what's left. A star fell, crashing into the quarry, the ground splitting. Shadows poured from the cracks, their long arms wrapping the tower. Elias ran inside, sealing the entrance with a carved stone. The dome's light flickered, the shadows whispering Clara's name. He climbed to the crown of thorns, carving faster, his hands scarred. The stolen book showed a ritual, a circle of blood to bind the thorns, to chain the void. Elias hesitated, his finger raw from cuts. The shadows pressed closer, their cold burning his skin. He pricked his finger, letting blood drip onto the thorn's tip. The dome roared, light flaring, and Clara's voice came, clear. Mr. Thorne, I'm still here. Elias touched the thorn, feeling her presence, but the shadow surged, blocking the light. The pale architect appeared, his coat a swirl of starlight, his eyes blazing under his hat. The gate is yours, he said. Bind it, and she returns. Elias's voice shook. You want the void to win? The figure laughed, a sound like breaking stone. You are the void. Build or lose her. Elias carved a protective symbol, a star with claws, around the thorn. Light burst, the shadows retreating, but the dome's hum grew louder, the air crackling. He saw Clara in his mind, her hands carving light, her face pale but alive. Hold on, he whispered, carving another. Thorn, the crown grew, its spikes glowing, the void's song softening, a whisper, not a scream. The townsfolk returned, their eyes glowing faintly. It's over, the mayor said. Leave it, Elias. I can't, he replied, tears falling. She's alive. He worked through the night, the crown of thorns nearly complete. The dome's light dimmed, stars calming above. Clara's voice came again. It's cold, Mr. Thorne. Elias touched the thorn, his hand trembling. The void opened, a black sea, spires rising, Clara standing there, her hands pale, her eyes starry. "Don't let him win," she whispered. The pale architect laughed, his voice everywhere. "She builds for me. Finish the gate or she fades." Elias carved a new symbol, a circle to seal the thorns. Light flared, the hum softening, but the void's presence grew, angry. The shadows surged, their whispers a scream. Blood. Now. Elias pricked his finger again, drawing a circle around the crown. The hum quieted, but Clara's voice faded, lost in the void's whispers. The sky worsened, stars falling like ash. Eldridge's vines spread, wrapping the tower's base. Children stood silent, their eyes starry, drawing eyes that glowed. Elias ignored it, his mind on the thorns. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing a city of bone and shadow, Clara building beside him. "Join us," he said. "The cosmos is yours." Elias woke, his hands carving without thought. The crown was complete, its thorns glowing like stars. He climbed to the highest spike, the new chisel humming weakly. The void's song was faint, promising Clara's return, but at a cost. He saw her in the thorn's reflection, her hands pale, her voice faint. "Help me." He carved a final symbol, a star with wings, to call her back. The tower shook, light flaring, and Clara's voice came, clear. "I'm here." Elias reached for the thorn, his hand passing through. The void opened wider, showing a city of Gothic spires, stars screaming, Clara building beside the architect. The pale architect appeared, his eyes blazing. "The facade falls," he said. "Your hands, your blood, mine. Open the gate and become." Elias's heart broke. "I won't." He smashed the chisel against the thorn, cracks forming. The dome roared, light pulsing, and the shadows screamed, dissolving. Clara's voice came one last time. "Thank you." The void's song faltered, the thorns dimming. Elias fell to his knees, tears streaming, the chisel slipping from his hand. The townsfolk gathered below, their faces pale. "It's done," the mayor whispered, staring at the sky. The stars calmed, but Eldridge was ash, its people broken. Elias stood, the stolen book silent. The architect's secret was his fate, his hands, his will, bound to the void. But Clara was still out there, her life tied to the gate. The chapter ends with Elias holding the broken chisel. The towers hum faint but alive. The void's whispers promised Clara, but the crown of thorns was cracking, the gate's hunger growing. Eldridge lay in ruins, its people lost, and Elias stood at the spike's edge, torn between saving Clara and breaking the void, knowing the eternal night held both hope and ruin. Chapter 12. The final structure, Elias stood atop the tower's jagged crown of thorns, the broken chisel trembling in his pale hand, its faint hum a whisper of fading power. The dome below flickered with a weak blood-red glow, casting shadows that writhed like dying creatures across the pale stones. The air was thick with ash and the sharp metallic sting of starlight. The sky above Eldridge a churning void of spiraling stars, their patterns forming jagged eyes and claws that screamed in silence. The tower's hum pulsed faintly in his chest. A heartbeat on the edge of stopping, but the void's presence pressed harder, seeping through the cracks in the crumbling facade like poison. His skin, ghostly white, shimmered with an eerie light, his veins silver like the tower's stones, his eyes burning with the void's cold fire. Clara's voice, "Thank you," echoed in his mind, a fragile thread of hope tangled with despair. The pale architect's secret was clear. Elias was the void's instrument, his hands, his blood, its key to consuming the world. The stolen book, cold against his chest, was silent, its pages blank, as if it had given all it could. The crown of thorns he'd built to chain the gate was cracking, its Gothic spikes splintering, revealing the dome's hungry glow. Eldridge was a wasteland, fields burned to ash, houses strangled by pale, thorny vines that pulsed like veins. The few remaining children standing silent with starry eyes, sketching glowing spirals in the dirt. The handful of townsfolk left watched from the quarry's edge, their faces hollow, their torches flickering like dying embers. Elias's heart ached for Clara, trapped in the void, her hands pale, her voice faint. He'd tried to save her, but the gate's hunger grew, and the pale architect's words burned. Open the gate and become. Elias descended the crown, his boots slipping on the broken stone. The quarry was a graveyard of shattered tools and scattered rocks, the air heavy with the void's weight. Inside the tower, the dome's light flickered, its symbols, eyes, stars, spirals, watching, still but alive. The labyrinth below called, its tunnels promising a final answer. Elias opened the stolen book, its pages flickering to life with a new design, a final structure, a monolith to seal or shatter the gate. The script read, "Stone binds the void, blood binds eternity, build and end it." His heart leapt. End it. The words were a spark in the dark, but the cost, blood, always blood, twisted his gut. He thought of Tom, swallowed by shadows, and Clara, her gray hand cold from their touch. He grabbed his tools, hammer, a new chisel carved from pale stone, a sack of quarry rocks, and climbed to the dome's center. The shadows stirred, their whispers faint. Build, end. He carved the first stone, shaping a monolith to rise from. The dome, its surface etched with symbols to bind or break the void's power. Days melted into nights, time folding in the tower's strange air. Elias worked without rest, his pale hands steady, his body driven by guilt, hope, and dread. The monolith rose, tall, Gothic, its surface a maze of spirals and eyes that seemed to blink. The stolen book guided him, its knowledge compressing into his mind. How to shape stone to trap eternity, how to carve the void's heart. Visions came, Clara in a black sea, her hands weaving light into spires, her eyes starry, her face empty. She is ours, the pale architect said in his mind. Build and end it. The townsfolk came at dawn, their numbers now a mere dozen. The mayor stood at the quarry's edge, his voice barely a whisper. Elias, the sky's gone. The stars are eating us. Stop, I'm ending it. Elias shouted, his voice raw. Clara's alive! The mayor shook his head, tears falling. You're killing what's left. A star fell, crashing into the quarry, the ground splitting. Shadows poured from the cracks, their long arms wrapping the tower. Elias ran inside, sealing the entrance with a carved stone. The dome's light flickered, the shadows whispering Clara's name. He climbed to the monolith, carving faster, his hands scarred. The stolen book showed a ritual, a circle of blood to bind the monolith, to seal or shatter the gate. Elias hesitated, his finger raw from countless cuts. The shadows pressed closer, their cold burning his skin. He pricked his finger, letting blood drip onto the monolith's base. The dome roared, light flaring, and Clara's voice came clear. Mr. Thorne, I'm still here. Elias touched the stone, feeling her presence, but the shadows surged, blocking the light. The pale architect appeared, his coat a swirl of starlight, his eyes blazing under his hat. The gate is yours, he said. Build the monolith and choose, seal it or open it. Elias's voice shook. You want the void to win. The figure laughed, a sound like shattering stone. You are the void. Choose or lose her. Elias carved a protective symbol, a star with claws, around the monolith. Light burst, the shadows retreating, but the dome's hum grew louder, the air crackling. He saw Clara in his mind, her hands carving light, her face pale but alive. Hold on, he whispered, carving another stone. The monolith grew, its surface glowing, the void's song softening, a whisper, not a scream. The townsfolk returned, their eyes glowing faintly. It's over, the mayor said. Leave it, Elias. I can't, he replied, tears falling. She's alive. He worked through the night, the monolith nearly complete. The dome's light dimmed, stars calming above. Clara's voice came again. It's cold, Mr. Thorne. Elias touched the stone, his hand trembling. The void opened, a black sea. Spires rising, Clara standing there, her hands pale, her eyes starry. "Don't let him win," she whispered. The pale architect laughed, his voice everywhere. "She builds for me. Finish the gate or she fades." Elias carved a new symbol, a circle to seal the monolith. Light flared, the hum softening, but the void's presence grew, angry. The shadows surged, their whispers a scream. "Blood. Now." Elias pricked his finger again, drawing a circle around the monolith. The hum quieted, but Clara's voice faded, lost in the void's whispers. The sky worsened, stars falling like ash. Eldridge's vines spread, wrapping the tower's base. The remaining children stood silent, their eyes starry, drawing eyes that glowed. Elias ignored it, his mind on the monolith. The pale architect visited in dreams, showing a city of bone and shadow. Clara building beside him. "Join us," he said. "The cosmos is yours." Elias woke, his hands carving without thought. The monolith was complete, its surface glowing, like a star. He climbed to its peak, the new chisel humming weakly. The void's song was faint, promising Clara's return, but at a cost. He saw her in the monolith's reflection, her hands pale, her voice faint. "Help me." He carved a final symbol, a star with wings, to call her back. The tower shook, light flaring, and Clara's voice came, clear. "I'm here." Elias reached for the stone, his hand passing through. The void opened wider, showing a city of Gothic spires, stars screaming, Clara building beside the architect. The pale architect appeared, his eyes blazing. "The monolith is your choice," he said. "Your hands, your blood, mine. Open the gate, or seal it forever." Elias's heart broke. "I choose her." He smashed the chisel against the monolith, cracks forming. The dome roared, light pulsing, and the shadows screamed, dissolving. Clara's voice came one last time. "Thank you." The void's song stopped, the monolith crumbling. Elias fell to his knees, tears streaming, the chisel slipping from his hand. Townsfolk gathered below, their faces pale. "It's done," the mayor whispered, staring at the sky. The stars vanished, the sky black, empty. Eldridge was ash, its people broken. Elias stood, the stolen book silent. The architect's secret was his fate, his hands, his will, bound to the void. But Clara's voice was gone, her life freed or lost. The chapter ends with Elias standing, amid the tower's ruins, the monolith dust, the gate sealed or broken. The void's whispers were silent, but Eldridge was gone, its people scattered. Elias held the broken chisel, alone in the eternal night, knowing he'd saved Clara, or doomed her, the cosmos, holding both hope and ruin.